Apologies for the sound issues this morning, and I think we should, oh, he just left. We should give Steve Fukuchi a big round of applause. So thank you very much, Steve. Good morning. We gather in this sacred space made most sacred in this moment by the presence and attention of each and every one of us. I now invite those of us gathered in this sanctuary to greet our live stream participants by turning and waving in the camera in the front right side of the sanctuary. For those in the sanctuary, let's now take a moment to greet one another. Morning and welcome to the Winchester Unitarian Society. My name is Ivan Correa and I will be your worship associate this morning. We are a liberal religious tradition that embraces the values of individual freedom, reason, and the pursuit of truth and meaning. We welcome people from diverse backgrounds, beliefs, identities, and sexual orientations, celebrating the inherent worth and dignity of every individual. Our summer services are led by members of our congregation who come forward and share their unique perspectives and insights. They graciously volunteer their time and energy to guide us in our exploration of UU principles and values. Today, and I had a little bit of a preview, we are very fortunate to have John and Liz leading our service. We invite you to actively listen and reflect on the words and music. An interesting announcement now, or an important announcement now. The Standing Committee is pleased to announce that our former intern minister, Marianne de Blasi, will be returning to serve as our part-time summer minister from July 1st through August 31st. Marianne will be working closely with our pastoral, I know, we should probably give her a Marianne will be working closely with our pastoral care associates to provide care and support to members and friends of the congregation throughout the summer months. We are especially delighted that Marianne is here with us this morning and will be leading us in sharing joys and sorrows. We'll hope you take a moment to say hello and welcome her back after the service. Marianne writes, "The members and friends of the Winchester Unitarian Society are very close to my heart, and I'm thrilled to be able to join you as your summer minister. If you or someone you know could use a pastoral presence in July or August, please reach out to the office. The number is 781-729-0949, or the email address, office@winchesteruu.org. And they will connect you with Marianne or a member of the pastoral care team. After the service, there will be light refreshments in the Sims room back behind the sanctuary. This will be followed by a discussion in the parlor. This is an opportunity for you to express your thoughts, ask questions, and engage in meaningful conversations with fellow attendees. I now invite you to open your hearts and mind to the spirit of worship as Liz reads the opening words by Leah Ongiri, Weavers of One Story.
Together, each facing our different human tasks. Or maybe the same central one, to embrace the lessons life delivers, to discern and respond as we grow, to refuse harm and cherish flourishing. May we know ourselves as vessels of infinite possibility, holders of each other's heartaches and tales of joy alike, weavers of one story in which we each have our part.
Am I missing something, Sheila? Yes, it's happening right now. I now invite Caroline Bronski to come forward to light our chalice while I read the chalice lighting words. We kindle this chalice to honor the quiet work of becoming good. In the gentle light of daily life, may we find lessons in humility and compassion. May each ordinary moment teach us patience and kindness, and may we meet these lessons with good humor, growing together on the shared path towards goodness. And now please rise in body or in spirit and join in singing our opening hymn, number 26 in the Gray Hymnal, Holy, Holy, Holy.
So we now come to the time in our service when we share those joys and sorrows and community that we are carrying in our hearts. So if you have something you would like to share with the congregation, and also make sure that you remember that we are live streaming and this is being recorded, then please come forward and share your joy or sorrow. And if you would like to, and then after that you would light a candle. And if you would like a candle and the microphone brought to you, please raise your hand and we will come to you. Following our joys and sorrows, we will join together in singing the centering hymn, number 86 in the Gray Hymnal, Blessed Spirit of My Life, and we will remain seated for that. So, this time is yours.
Hi, I'm Jack McCreeless, and last week I got an email from the church through Richard Dorbin announcing the 14th annual Massachusetts walking tour and concert. And I thought, well, now that's a weird thing. So, and it was here. It was right here in our church. So I thought, well, maybe I should go. So we went. Janet and I went, and we went for the walk, as much of it as I could take. And it was great. It was this young, energetic couple who'd hike a lot. I could go on and on. And they also gave a concert in the evening down in the chapel. And my point is, I'm really grateful for our chapel and our church for being able to host such an event, because they were stunned by how beautiful the chapel was and how well it sounded and just the whole arrangements. It was just great.
My name is Claire McNeil, and I'm lighting a candle in honor of my long friendship with Kay Stanley, whom I have known and loved since kindergarten. Yesterday, I had a conversation with her through her daughter. Kay is in hospice, and we shared a lot of meaningful connections.
Good morning. Gordy McIntosh. The Standing Committee is also pleased to announce that we have hired an office administrator. Her name is Stacey Katz. She comes to us from the First Parish of Bedford, where she right now serves as the administrative assistant and is also a member there. She will begin here in Winchester on July 7th, where she'll have about 6 days to overlap with Richard. I hope she can soak up a lot of information.
Hello, I'm Jesse Weinstein. I had a concern, wanted to share. I am, as I think most of us are, terrified and dismayed by the continued progress of the Republicans' big, ugly bill, and just giving me nightmares. So, wanted to mention that.
Good morning. I'm Donna Reed, and I really can't see any of you this morning, but my good news is I had my first cataract surgery this last week, and the results are going to be amazing once I get my new glasses. And I'm also so glad that you're here with us this summer. Thank you so much.
Good morning. I'm Betsy Bowles. And on November the 27th, 2004, I was married in this church. And I don't know if you saw it, but last week there was an article in the New York Times about how this could be revoked. And I just want to tell you how thankful I am that I get to walk in this church every Sunday, and I get to remember walking down this aisle, and I remember Mary Harrington, that a lot of you remember, married me up here. And I ask you, if you get a chance, to speak up for this, because I think if they can, am I being too political? Okay. I think if they can take away women's rights to abortion, I think they can also take away the fact that same-sex marriage should not be allowed. And I strongly, as a Unitarian, I strongly disagree with that.
I always like Raim Doris. I always like a little bit of levity after the absolute profound what's going on outside. Anyway, we put our 2 hummingbird feeders up in the backyard, and they came right away, 3, 4. So that's also what's happening today. Welcome.
Thank you. Would you like to light a candle? And Liz, let us light a final candle for those joys and sorrows that remain unspoken but are in our hearts.
Good morning. Today, we celebrate the English novelist Jane Austen, who was born 250 years ago this year. If you've read any of her novels, and I hope you have, you are well acquainted with her wit and wisdom already, as well as her finely detailed and engaging characters. If you haven't read Austen, or maybe it's been a little while, we hope this service inspires you to revisit her works or visit them for the first time. Jane Austen was the youngest of 8 children born to an English clergyman in Hampshire County in southeast England, and a fair number of her biographical details show up in her books, beginning with their being set in the English countryside where Austen spent the majority of her life, rarely but sometimes in London or Bath. She was educated privately and for a time at a boarding school, but like Elizabeth Bennet of Pride and Prejudice, benefited from the private libraries of her father and family friends. Like Fanny Price of Mansfield Park, her family is considered the poor relations, with family wealth going to the eldest son away from her father. George Austen had only a modest living as a minister. Like the Miss Dashwoods of Sense and Sensibility, her father's death left her, her sister Cassandra, and mother in a precarious financial situation. Also like the Miss Dashwoods, one of her relations provided housing for the 3 of them. Like Anne Elliot of Persuasion, she had an early love, Tom Lefroy, who she seemed to have never given up. According to her letters, they were on the cusp of an engagement when Lefroy's family intervened. It was viewed as a bad match, as neither Austen nor Lefroy had any money. Like Maria Bertram of Mansfield Park, Jane was engaged at a time to a wealthy man who was universally disliked. Unlike Maria, Jane broke off the engagement and thus, unlike her heroines, never married. Like nearly all of her female characters, Jane played the piano and was quite proficient by all accounts. Sheet music was very expensive at that time, and the custom was to hand copy music into a personal manuscript book. Some of Austen's music books have survived, and so we, as we witnessed with the Prelude, and I think you saw on the screen, we know of some of the music that she played. One composer mentioned in her novels is John Baptiste Kramer, no relation to me, whose music is played by Emma in the book Emma. Jane was often also fond of singing and dancing, and so the summer choir will sing a part song, perhaps in the style of the glee held at Mansfield Park, and the service closes with a waltz almost certain to have been known during Austen time. While the plots of her novels revolve around the pursuit of marriage, they also contain lessons about how to live together as humans in society. Some of her heroines are clearly superior people, like Fanny Price with her committed moral focus, or Eleanor Dashwood, whose good sense steers her sister and mother through times of trouble. Yet others struggle with themselves and need to grow to find fulfillment. Witness Marianne Dashwood, whose selfish heartbreak nearly kills her, or Emma, who thinks of others as a kind of plaything, not always looking out for their best interests. And who would ever forget Elizabeth Bennet, whose pride and prejudicial judgment of character almost costs her the attachment to Mr. Darcy. These heroines possess a degree of self-awareness that leads them to recognize their mistakes and learn and grow from those weaknesses. Another significant attribute of Austen's heroines is their attention to the needs of others. Selflessness is cherished over selfishness. Indeed, her villains, all men, are universally self-centered and interested only in their needs. While the villains may regard the evil caused by their actions, may regret the evil caused by their actions, they never truly repent, nor do they grow as people. Contrast this with the selflessness of an Eleanor Dashwood, who exercises considerable self-will to contain her own personal suffering so as not to burden her sister and mother. Knowing that we are all flawed creatures, it is comforting to remember that we too are capable of personal growth, and perhaps by spending a few hours with these inspired literary creations, we can learn to become better versions of ourselves. So I'd like to invite the summer choir up, and it's an aside, there's also some interesting culinary things in the books, and one of them was a rout cake, which I have made for us. So in the coffee hour, you'll find they're like little tiny scones, little currants in them. They're actually quite tasty. So you can look for those at the coffee hour. But I'll invite the summer choir to sing for us.
It is a lively evening in Pride and Prejudice's Meryton Assembly Rooms. Elizabeth Bennet is resting after a dance when she overhears the proud Mr. Darcy dismissing her as tolerable, but not handsome enough to tempt me. Elizabeth, witty and spirited, laughs it off, but we readers know the sting her joking hides. In this famous ballroom insult and Elizabeth's reaction to it, Austen deftly uses humor to pull us in, but she is also inviting us to reflect. Here are a young woman smarting from her injured pride and a young man blinded by his high status. How will they learn and grow? What follows is not just a romantic comedy of manners, but a journey of moral growth. Indeed, philosopher Alasdair MacIntyre, a giant in modern ethics, saw Jane Austen not merely as a novelist, but as a moral philosopher in her own right. Austen, he observed, united timeless ethical principles with everyday social life, making her the last great, effective, imaginative voice of an entire tradition of thinking about virtue. Austen's novels teach us about becoming good, not by preaching or giving abstract rules, but through storytelling. What do MacIntyre and others mean when they praise Austen's ethical vision? They place her in the tradition of virtue ethics, which emphasizes character and virtue over rules or outcomes. Unlike rule-based ethics, follow these commandments, or results-based ethics, ensure the best outcomes for the most people. Virtue ethics asks, what kind of person should I be? It focuses on cultivating virtues like honesty and kindness through practice in community. The goal is to develop an inner disposition toward goodness so that doing the right thing becomes a natural expression of who we are. This idea dates back to Aristotle, who taught that virtues are formed by habitual practice and guided by reason, leading toward human flourishing, what he called eudaimonia, a life of true fulfillment. Jane Austen was a remarkable illustrator of this concept without naming it. All 6 of her novels, in different ways, show characters engaging in the work of forming or sometimes deforming their own characters. Her stories are full of moral testing points, moments of choice, insight or blindness, played out in drawing rooms, at picnics, and yes, at dances. As MacIntyre noted, her writing weaves together Christian virtues and Aristotelian practical wisdom in a social setting familiar to her readers, showing that growth in virtue can happen in the midst of everyday life. 2 virtues shine through Austen's work as essential to becoming good. These are self-knowledge and humility. Her books are incredibly rich, and there's many, many ethical principles to explore, so I'm only going to focus on self-knowledge and humility, so we won't be here all day. To know oneself and to temper one's pride for the sake of others are lessons her characters must learn on the road to true goodness. Let's look at how Austen illustrates these virtues in 2 beloved novels, Pride and Prejudice and Emma, to see what wisdom we might carry into our own lives. Elizabeth Bennet prides herself on being clever and clear-sighted. Mr. Darcy prides himself on his refined judgment and honorable principles. When their paths cross, it's a clash of 2 strong wills, each a bit too confident in her or his own rightness. The famous irony of Pride and Prejudice is that the woman who said that Mr. Darcy is the last man on earth whom I could ever be prevailed upon to marry, and the man who felt deeply that the impropriety of the conduct of Elizabeth's family and their inferior social connections made her entirely unsuitable for him, do eventually become united, but only after each confronts painful truths about himself or herself. Midway through the story, Elizabeth receives a letter from Darcy that destroys her self-assurance. In this letter, triggered by her withering rejection of his first clumsy and offensive proposal, Darcy explains himself and reveals that the charming Mr. Wickham, whom Elizabeth had trusted, is not at all what he seems. Elizabeth is shocked and ashamed. In this moment of awakening, she cries, "How despicably have I acted? I, who have prided myself on my discernment. How humiliating is this discovery? Till this moment, I never knew myself." Elizabeth realizes that she has been deeply wrong, prejudiced, and blind. She discovers her own flaws, and it is a mortifying discovery indeed. But in that lesson, painful as it is, lies the seed of growth. Self-knowledge dawns, and with it comes a clearer eye. Elizabeth begins to see Darcy more fairly and to judge herself and her family more honestly. It's no accident that Austen uses the language of humiliation, not in the sense of public shame, but in the older sense of being humbled, being brought back down to the earth. This is virtue ethics in action. By recognizing her error, Elizabeth can begin to change. Darcy has his own humbling journey. Elizabeth's scathing refusal of his initial proposal, in which she accuses him of arrogance and selfish disdain for others, serves as a mirror for him to examine his own conduct. Darcy takes her rebuke to heart and earnestly reforms his behavior. By the time he and Elizabeth meet again at his Pemberley estate, he is markedly changed. Courteous to her lower status relatives, gentle and kind, where before he was aloof. Later, he confesses to Elizabeth how badly he had acted. I have been a selfish being all my life in practice, though not in principle. Such I was, and such I might still have been, but for you, dearest, loveliest Elizabeth. What do I not owe you? You taught me a lesson. By you, I was properly humbled. This is Darcy's expression of sincere repentance. He sees that having good principles wasn't enough. He lacked the virtue of open-heartedness. Only when he was brought low did he learn that being good is more than doing what pride and honor dictate, that goodness requires treating others with consideration and respect. Darcy's newfound humility doesn't make him weak. It makes him worthy of the happiness that follows. Both he and Elizabeth emerge as wiser, better people, having learned to laugh at their own folly and cherish each other. A few years after Pride and Prejudice, Austen gave us Emma, a novel she joked featured a heroine whom no one but myself much will like. Emma Woodhouse is clever, pretty, and rich, with very little to distress or vex her, as the famous opening goes. She's also a bit spoiled and overly confident in her own judgment. If Elizabeth Bennet's vice was forming hasty judgment, Emma's is presumption. She believes she knows what's best for others and merrily meddles in their affairs. Emma means well, mostly, but she lacks humility and true self-knowledge. Throughout Emma, we see our heroine making one misguided choice after another, largely because she's blind to her own flaws. She takes the sweet but naive Harriet Smith under her wing and persuades her to reject an honest suitor, all because Emma imagines Harriet as her bosom friend can do better. She misjudges who loves whom in a series of cringe-worthy blunders, convinced her insight is superior to that of others. Each time Emma says to herself, well, I've learned my lesson now, only to repeat the pattern. It's a comical portrait of a young person who has the right principles in theory, kindness, responsibility, propriety, but fails to see the arrogance and self-satisfaction tainting her intentions. How many of us have fallen into that trap? Austen invites us to laugh at Emma, yes, but also to sympathize. Growth is hard, and seeing our own faults clearly is perhaps the hardest part of all. The turning point comes at the famous picnic at Box Hill. In that scene, Emma makes a thoughtless and cruel jest at the expense of Miss Bates, a chatty but deeply kind older woman of lower status. The insult lands, wounding Miss Bates, who is too good-hearted to retaliate. But another person has been watching, Mr. Knightley, Emma's friend and moral compass. He reproves Emma sternly for her behavior, delivering one of Austen's most memorable lines, "It was badly done, indeed." For perhaps the first time, Emma is cut to the core by well-deserved criticism. Knightley's scolding pierces her self-satisfaction. As Austen describes, Emma is vexed beyond what could have been expressed, agitated, mortified, grieved, and above all, struck by the truth of Knightley's words. Riding home in her carriage, Emma begins to cry remorseful tears. She asks herself, how could I have been so cruel, so brutal to Miss Bates? It is a moment of painful clarity. All of Emma's excuses and cleverness fall away, and she finally sees herself as capable of doing wrong. In that humbling moment, Emma undergoes her moral crisis and awakening. We might say that, like Elizabeth and Darcy, she finally sees herself and is properly humbled. Chastened and eager to make amends, Emma seeks out Miss Bates to apologize sincerely. She resolves to listen more and scheme less. She also, not coincidentally, becomes more open to her own feelings, recognizing to her surprise that her attachment to Mr. Knightley is more than just friendship. By the novel's end, the once overly self-assured Emma has developed a gentler outlook. Austen doesn't erase Emma's spirited nature. She's still witty and lively, but the virtue of humility has taken root, making Emma more generous, wiser, and happier. Through these two stories, Jane Austen imparts a spiritual insight. Our everyday lives are the arena of moral development. Grand gestures or dramatic sacrifices aren't required for ethical growth. Rather, it's the small daily interactions and choices that shape our character. A dance, a letter, a picnic, a conversation, these are the seeming mundane settings where Elizabeth, Darcy, Emma, and others confront themselves and choose whether to change. Austen's genius was to see comedy and grace in these ordinary mortal struggles. She understood that becoming a good person is often a slow process of mistakes and realizations, of being humbled when we recognize our errors and decide to change. Crucially, she showed that this work of becoming good is done in relationship, through honest friendship like Mr. Knightley's and Emma's, or through romantic attraction with someone who teaches us about ourselves, like Elizabeth and Darcy. Austen's novels encourage us to approach our own lives with a sense of humor about our own and other people's foibles, and a belief that people can learn and improve. We might ask ourselves, when have we been an Emma, so sure of our rightness that we disregard the feelings of others without realizing it? When have we been an Elizabeth, blind to our own bias, until reality gave us a wake-up call? These reflections aren't meant to induce guilt, but to remind us that we are all in the project of growth. As long as we live, we can be working on becoming better, more compassionate, more just, more self-aware, and more loving. Jane Austen reminds us that the work of becoming good doesn't happen overnight, and it doesn't happen at all without self-knowledge and humility. But it does happen. We see it in her characters, and we can see it in ourselves. In Austen's world, falling short is not the end of the story, it's the beginning of insight. As we stumble forward, we can do so with a bit more grace and good humor, knowing that mistakes are part of the curriculum. In the end, Austen assures us that the ongoing work of becoming good is worth it, leading not only to happy marriages and novels, but to a kinder and more compassionate way of being. And that, indeed, is very well done.
The offering is a spiritual practice, a collective affirmation of our shared values and commitment to the mission of this liberal religious congregation. Those in the sanctuary are welcome to donate in cash, by check, or electronically. You can text to the number in your order of service or visit our website under the giving page. Please Those who wish to do so are invited to join in the unison affirmation in the order of service. Body or in spirit, and join us in our closing hymn, number 126, Come Thou Fount of Every Blessing.
Incline us, O God, to think humbly of ourselves, to be severe only in the examination of our own conduct, to consider our fellow creatures with kindness, and to judge of all they say and do with that charity which we would desire from them ourselves.
We extinguish this flame, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, or the fire of commitment. Conversation in the Sims room.
Thank you for your help, Ivan.